Before alarm clocks, before streetlights, before glass in most windows. Perhaps 1,000,000 people shared one city, and somehow it worked. Tonight we're going to live one full day among them, from the dark hours before Roman dawn, all the way around to the moment the last oil lamp goes out. And before we set out, this is a video you're welcome to fall asleep to. There's no quiz at the end. If you drift off somewhere around the baths or the marketplace, that's not a failure, that's the plan. The city will still be here tomorrow night, so dim the screen, settle in, and get comfortable. The Rome we're visiting is the Rome of the early empire, the late 1st century. A city of marble forums and golden temples, yes. But mostly a city of narrow streets and crowded wooden apartment blocks stacked 5 and 6 stories high. The Romans called them insulae, meaning island. Our day begins in one of them, in the dark. Here's the first thing that would surprise you about ancient Rome. The night was the loud part. Not the day. If you were lying awake in this room 3 floors up, you wouldn't be listening to silence. You'd be listening to wheels. More than a century earlier, Julius Caesar had signed a law that banned carts and wagons from the city streets during the daylight hours. The streets were simply too narrow and too crowded. So every delivery Rome needed, grain, timber, wine, stone, had to come in after sundown. Which meant that all night, every night, iron-rimmed wheels ground across the paving stones beneath 100,000 bedrooms. The poet Juvenal joked that in Rome, sleep itself cost money. Only the wealthy, in their quiet garden houses, could afford it. And someone else was awake too. Moving through the dark on foot, in small groups, carrying buckets, ropes, and axes, the vigils, the watchmen. Emperor Augustus had created them back in the year 6 after one fire too many. Part firefighter, part night patrol, the closest thing this city had to someone keeping an eye on things while you slept. They had good reason to stay alert. Those tall apartment islands were built of timber and cheap brick, packed tight, floor upon floor, lit by open flames. In a city like this, fire wasn't a possibility. It was a schedule. The only question was where and when. And then, 3 streets over, one of them stops. There it is. The thing they walk all night hoping not to see. Behind a 4th floor shutter, a light that isn't lamplight. Too bright, too restless. The color of a bad night beginning. The whistle passes from man to man down the block, and the vigils move, not in panic, but in practice. They've done this 100 times. Buckets swing from shoulders. A ladder appears from somewhere. Doors are pounded, and sleepy neighbors spill into the street in their tunics, already forming a line. from the corner fountain, a chain of hands. Bucket to bucket to bucket, water traveling up the line while the empty ones come back down. The watchmen work small hand pumps and drape vinegar-soaked blankets over what the fire wants next. This is how a city of wood fought fire with arithmetic and arms. Within the hour, it's over. A charred window frame, a smoldering balcony pulled down with hooks before it could share its bad ideas with the roof. One family's night is ruined, 1,000 families' nights are saved. The vigils coil their ropes without ceremony. For them, this was Tuesday. This is why Augustus invented them all those years ago, because in a city stacked this high and packed this tight, someone has to stay awake so that everyone else can afford not to. 3 streets away, our man never stirred. The fire, the whistles, the shouting, all of it folded into his dreams as one more layer of the Roman night. Our Roman for today is an ordinary man, not a senator, not a slave. A citizen of the middle sort, a client of a wealthier patron, a man with sandals to mend and favors to ask. Right now he's asleep in his tunic, because most Romans slept in the same clothes they wore all day. Rome kept time by the sun, and only by the sun. Daylight was divided into 12 hours, but here's the gentle strangeness of it. The hours themselves stretched and shrank with the seasons. A summer hour was long and lazy, a winter hour short and dim. Right now, in the last stretch of night, no hour has a number at all. As the sky pales, the night traffic hurries to finish. Drivers push their oxen toward the gates, because when the sun clears the horizon, the wheels must stop. The night shift of Rome is going home to sleep, just as everyone else is waking up. The vigils hand the streets over to the day. The torches are ground out against the stones, one by one. Somewhere behind 1,000 shuttered windows, the smell of last night's bread still hangs in the stairwells. Rome takes one long breath in the half-light and begins. The first hour of the Roman day begins the moment the sun rises. No alarm needed. The light itself climbs through the window, crosses the floor, and finds his face. In a world without clocks on the wall, the sun is the wall, the clock, and the schedule all at once. Getting up is a short project. He's already dressed, more or less. A splash of water on the face and hands from a basin. That's the whole morning routine. The full body wash will come later, and it will be glorious. But that's an afternoon story. His whole building is waking at once. Anisola was a vertical neighborhood. The ground floor held shops, and the landlord's spacious rooms. The higher you climbed, the smaller and cheaper the rooms became. And the further you were from water and from any hope of escaping a fire. Height in Rome was poverty. There's no kitchen up here and no running water. Fire is too dangerous and pipes don't climb. So, like nearly everyone in the building, our man starts his day by walking down. Everything in his life, water, food, work, news, waits at street level. At the corner, the public fountain is already busy. This is where Rome's famous aqueducts end their long journey. Cold mountain water carried across arches and valleys, arriving here at a stone basin on an ordinary street, free for anyone with a jug and a little patience. That water in his jug has been traveling for days. It started as a spring in the hills, many miles from the city, cold, clean, and completely unaware that it had an appointment in Rome. The Romans didn't wait for water to come to them. They went and got it. It came on foot, so to speak, walking down a slope so gentle you could barely see it, across mile after mile of stone arches, striding over the countryside. No pumps, no engines. Just gravity, patience, and some of the most careful measuring the ancient world ever did. Nearly a dozen of these stone rivers fed the city at its height. At the city's edge, each aqueduct poured into a distribution tank, and from there the water was divided like an inheritance, to the public fountains first, to the great baths, and, for those willing to pay for the privilege, through private pipes into the houses of the few. Most of Rome carried its share home by hand. And here's the detail to fall asleep to: the fountains never stopped. No taps, no valves. The water ran day and night, and the overflow spilled into the gutters and washed the streets on its way to the river. Rome was rinsed continuously, like a plate under a running faucet, for centuries. Our man climbs his 3 flights with the full jug on his shoulder, the way he does every morning, the way his father did. 8 liters or so of the Apennines, delivered the last 50 steps by human stubbornness. He will not think about the aqueducts once today. That's how good engineering works, invisibly. Breakfast, the Romans called it iantaculum, is nothing dramatic. A piece of yesterday's bread, maybe rubbed with a little olive oil, a few olives. A bit of cheese if the week has gone well. Many Romans skipped it entirely and simply walked out into the morning. And the street he steps into is already becoming a market, a workshop, and a theater all at once. Shopkeepers fold back their wooden shutters. A barber sets a stool directly on the pavement. Rome didn't really have a difference between indoors and outdoors, between business and street. The city was one continuous room. But our man isn't shopping, and he isn't idling. He has an appointment, the same appointment he has every single morning, and it can't be missed. Because in Rome, the first 2 hours of the day belong to a very particular ritual, and it begins at another man's front door. This is the door of his patron, a wealthy man in a proper house, a domus with a garden somewhere inside, and silence money can buy. And gathered at this door, in the soft light of the second hour, is a small crowd of men just like ours. They're called clients. The morning greeting they've come for is called the Salutatio. The deal was simple and very old. The patron offers protection, connections, legal help, and, most importantly, this morning, a handout. The clients offer loyalty, votes when it mattered, errands, applause, and the daily spectacle of a crowded doorstep, which told the whole street exactly how important this household was. The door opens, and they file into the atrium, the formal heart of the house, with its shallow pool open to the sky. Our man has stood in this line hundreds of times. He knows the mosaic under his feet by heart. He knows exactly how long the wait will be. In Rome, even patients had a routine. One by one, they greet the patron with the morning's formula, and one by one they receive the sportula, the little basket. Once it had been an actual basket of food. By our century, it was usually a small handout of coins, not wealth, but breakfast and rent and one more day for thousands of households across the city. When his turn comes, our man delivers the greeting, receives his coins, and lingers just long enough to be asked a small favor, accompany the patron to the forum later, and stand nearby looking supportive while he argues a case. This, too, is the job. In Rome, showing up was a profession. He has stood at this door in January rain and August heat. That's the unglamorous truth of the client's life. It isn't one morning, it's thousands of them, stacked into years. And the hope that keeps the sandals walking is simple, that constancy gets noticed. That one day the patron stops calling you a client and starts calling you a friend. Because a patron's favor could bend a life. A letter of recommendation in the right hands meant a post in a warehouse, a contract, a place for a son. A loan with no interest and no paperwork. A word to a magistrate. In a city without applications or offices, the doorstep was the application, and showing up was the resume. And here's the part they didn't put on the monuments. An hour from now, his patron will put on his own best toga and go stand at a grander door to greet a grander man. Nearly everyone in Rome was somebody's client. The chain of morning greetings ran doorstep by doorstep, all the way up, until it ended at the one door that greeted no one, the emperor's. It's easy to smile at all this ceremony, but the Salutatio was the social internet of Rome. News traveled doorstep to doorstep. See, jobs were found here. Marriages were arranged, loans secured, feuds started and settled, all in the first 2 hours of daylight, in 100,000 doorways every single morning for centuries. By the end of the second hour, the ritual dissolved. The clients scatter into the city with their coins, and the patron prepares for his own day of being important. Our man steps back into the street, a little richer, a little hungrier, and heads toward the loudest place in the ancient world. The Forum Romanum. If the insula was Rome's bedroom, this was its office, courtroom, newsroom, and stage. By the third hour, it's a slow sea of togas. Lawyers and clerks, bankers at their tables, priests, pickpockets, tourists from every corner of the empire, and men like ours, being visibly loyal near their patrons. In the great covered halls, the basilicas, The courts are in session, and Roman lawyers are doing what Roman lawyers did best, performing. These are the horse hours, as one poet put it. Trials here were entertainment, and a good advocate drew a crowd the way a gladiator did. Let's listen to one case, since we're here. Two brothers, one dead father, one vineyard outside the walls, and two completely incompatible memories of what the old man promised. Half the forum has heard a version of this story before. The other half is living it. Beside the court stands a clepsydra, a water clock. Each advocate gets his measure of water, and when the vessel runs dry, so does his eloquence. So Roman lawyers learned to race the water, and everyone in the ancient world understood the joke when someone begged the court for just one more jar. And listen to the crowd, that burst of approval at the advocate's best line. Some of it is genuine, and some of those enthusiastic gentlemen are being paid by the speech. Hired applause was a working profession in the Roman courts, and everyone knew it, and it worked anyway. Some things about audiences never change. By late morning, it's decided. The vineyard goes to the younger brother. The elder gets the townhouse and a grievance he'll keep watered for years. The advocates shake hands like actors after a play, because that's half of what they were. And the forum, without pausing, moves on to the next family's whole world. Just off the square, under a shop's awning, a school is in session, right there in the open air. A teacher, a few benches, a cluster of children reciting in unison since dawn. Neighbors complained bitterly about the noise, and we know this because they wrote the complaints down, and the complaints survived. Homework fades, grudges are forever. Every street doubles as a marketplace. The tabernae, the shops, open their full width to the pavement. The cobbler among his lasts, the coppersmith with his small ringing anvil, the cloth merchant unrolling color into the sunlight. Each trade has its own street, its own smell, and its own particular sound. And underneath it all, the smell that owned the entire city, bread. Rome ran on grain, the way our world runs on electricity. Ships hauled it across the sea from Egypt and Africa. The state subsidized it, and hundreds of bakeries turned it into the round, scored loaves that fed 1 million people. Lose the grain fleet, and you lose Rome. Notice what's missing from these busy streets. Wheels. Caesar's old law is still holding. Everything moving through Rome in daylight moves on legs, porters bent under sacks, litters carrying the wealthy above the crowd, donkeys where the alleys allow. 1 million people delivering their city to itself by hand. In the corner of the forum stands one of the city's timekeepers, a sundial. Romans glanced at it the way we glance at a phone, casually, constantly, and without much trust. On cloudy days, the city simply guessed. And honestly, for most of these people, precision didn't matter. See, the day had a shape, not a schedule, and the shape of this day is now approaching its hinge. The shadow shortens toward noon. The fifth hour ends, the sixth begins, and here, Rome does something that our world has almost entirely forgotten how to do. At the busiest moment of the day, the city stops. The sixth hour is noon, and noon is the off switch. Courts adjourn, shops half closed. The forum's slow sea drains into the side streets. For the next stretch of the afternoon, ambition itself takes a break. The Romans considered this not laziness, but good engineering of a human life. Lunch, prandium, is quick, and for most people, it's bought, not cooked. Remember, no kitchens upstairs. So Rome invented the hole-in-the-wall food counter. The thermopolium, a masonry bar facing the street with big clay jars sunk right into the countertop, holding the day's warm food. Fast food is not a modern idea. It's a Roman one. Our man takes bread, a ladle of chickpea stew, a cup of cheap wine cut generously with water. He eats standing at the counter, elbow to elbow with a porter and an off-duty watchman, trading the morning's gossip. Dozens of these counters have been dug out of the ash at Pompeii, some with the paint still on the walls and the jars still in place. Look down at the counter itself, because it's doing something clever, it's advertising. The front is painted, a proud rooster, a pair of ducks hanging ready for the pot, a sea nymph riding a seahorse for a touch of glamour. In a city where many customers couldn't read, the menu was a picture book. We know exactly what simmered in jars like these, because in Pompeii, one counter was buried with its lunch still inside. When archaeologists opened its jars, they found duck, pork, goat, fish, even snails, and the ghost of wine in another. The paintings on the front matched the bones within. The menu was honest. There's a dog painted on that Pompeii counter too, on a leash, part decoration, part mind the dog. And scratched into the plaster beside it, a customer left a rude joke about the owner that survived 2,000 years. The empire's fall, graffiti is forever. Somewhere, that customer is still laughing. Pompeii, a modest town, had about 80 of these counters. 80 in a place you could walk across in 20 minutes. Rome had them beyond counting. Which tells you the most relatable fact in this entire video. The average Roman, confronted with cooking dinner, said, "No thank you," and ate out. 2,000 years of civilization, same conclusion. Then comes the Meridiatio, the midday rest. Behind every shutter in the city, Rome lies down. The wealthy on couches in cool shaded rooms. The shopkeeper on a mat behind his counter. Our man, back up 3 flights on his own bed with the warm noise of the world turned down to a murmur. If you're still with us, by the way, you're doing this exactly right. And if you're drifting, even better, let the siesta hour do its work on you too. The Romans believed the afternoon would take care of itself. It usually did. It usually still does. An hour passes, maybe more. Nobody's counting, remember? The light through the window turns from white to honey and slides up the wall. Seventh hour is ending. And now the entire city is waking from its nap with one single shared glorious idea. From every insula, every domus, every workshop, Romans pour into the streets carrying little kits of oil flasks and towels, all flowing in the same direction. The rich and poor, citizen and slave, senator and shoemaker, all headed to the same address. The 8th hour belongs to the baths. The public baths were the greatest social invention of the Roman world. For the price of a small coin, and on many days for nothing at all when a politician was feeling generous. Anyone could walk out of a cramped, waterless room and into this. Marble, mosaics, gardens, steam, and thousands of liters of warm water all afternoon. It starts, for the energetic, in the palestra, the open exercise yard, a little wrestling, some weights, a ball game with more laughter than rules. The goal isn't athletic glory. Is to work up an honest sweat before the water. Our man plays exactly one round, loses graciously, and considers his duty done. Then the rooms in ritual order. First, the tepidarium, the warm room, where the body adjusts and conversation softens. Then the coldarium, the hot room, where the real business happens, heat soaking into tired shoulders, steam blurring the painted ceiling, the whole city sweating out its morning together. Now here's the question nobody in this warm room is asking, because the answer is under their feet. Where is the fire? So hearth in here, no flame anywhere in sight. And yet the water steams, the walls are warm to the touch, and the floor is almost too hot to stand on. Because the entire floor is hollow. It rests on hundreds of little brick pillars, each about knee height, holding the marble up like a table with too many legs. And through that dark crawl space beneath the bather's feet flows a slow river of hot air and smoke. The Romans called the system a hypocaust, the fire below. The fire itself lives in a back room the bathers never see, where furnace slaves feed wood into a roaring mouth from before dawn until after dark. Their hot breath of air and smoke slides under the floors, climbs inside the very walls through hollow clay tubes, and leaves through the roof. The building doesn't contain heating. The building is the heating. How hot did it get? Hot enough that in the hottest rooms, bathers strapped on wooden sandals, because bare feet on that floor was a lesson you only needed once. Imagine that, a public building 2,000 years ago whose main engineering problem was being too warm. And the bathers above float on all of it without a thought, warmth arriving from nowhere, luxury with the machinery politely hidden. Keep that image. A whole city's tiredness dissolving on top of an invisible, carefully tended fire. If there's a better metaphor for civilization, nobody's painted it yet. Soap, as we know it, isn't part of this world. Instead, olive oil rubbed into the skin, then scraped away, sweat, oil, grime, and all, with a curved bronze blade called a strigil. It sounds strange. Every Roman within these walls would tell you, drowsily, that it feels wonderful. Then the frigidarium, the cold plunge, a bracing gasp of mountain water that snaps the whole ritual shut like a lid. And after that, nothing. That's the secret. After the cold pool, there is nowhere to be. Romans lingered here for hours, strolling the gardens, reading, dozing, gossiping, being magnificently unproductive. The philosopher Seneca once lived in rooms directly above a bathhouse and wrote a whole letter cataloging the sounds that came up through his floor, the grunts of the weightlifters, the slap of the masseur's hands, the splash of the show-off diving, the sausage seller singing out his prices. He was complaining. It's the coziest complaint ever written. Stand in this hall and you can feel what the baths really were, the one place the whole city agreed on. The emperor bathed, the porter bathed. Arguments cooled here, deals were sealed here, and every afternoon a hard and unequal city practiced, for a few steamy hours, being one thing. As the 9th hour arrives, the crowd's thin, pink-skinned and slow-moving, drifting out into the softening light. Everyone is heading the same place now, home, or to someone else's home. Because in Rome, the day has been saving its best meal for last. Cena, the main meal, and the emotional center of the Roman day. It begins around the 9th hour, mid to late afternoon by our reckoning. While there's still light to eat by, because light after dark is expensive. Dinner at sunset wasn't romance, it was budgeting. For most of the city, Cena is honest and simple. The ancient backbone of it is pulse, a thick porridge of boiled grain, the dish Romans ate for centuries before bread conquered the menu. Around it, bread, olives, cheese, whatever vegetables the market offered, maybe a little salted fish. For wine always watered, meat only on a good week. But tonight, our man has an invitation. His patron is hosting, and a loyal client makes the guest list when a couch needs filling. Which brings us to the famous part. Yes, wealthy Romans really did eat lying down. The dining room was called the triclinium, 3 couches, arranged in a horseshoe around a low table. You recline on your left elbow and eat with your right hand, fingers and spoons, no forks in this world. The courses come in a leisurely parade, eggs and olives and salads to open, then the main dishes, and fruit and honeyed sweets to close. The Romans had a saying for a proper dinner's arc, from the egg to the apples. The opening course arrives with its faithful companion, mulsum, wine sweetened with honey, poured small and sipped slow. The Romans believed it opened the appetite and the conversation in the same motion. To start a dinner without it felt, to many, like starting a story in the middle. When the main platters land, a specialist takes over, the household's carver, a servant whose entire art is dismantling a roast with theatrical calm. In great houses, carving was performance, done to rhythm, admired like dance. Our man watches a duck become portions in under a minute and files it away to describe, inaccurately, for years. And then the table exhales into the secundae mensae, the sweet endgame. Honey cakes, figs and dates. Beers and wine. The lamps get the room to themselves, the conversation drops half a register, and dinner stops being a meal and becomes what it was always really for, a slow, warm excuse to stay. And on nearly everything, a dark amber thread of Rome's favorite flavor, garum, fermented fish sauce, made in coastal factories, shipped across the empire in amphorae, splashed onto food the way we use salt or soy sauce. To our man, that sharp, savory smell simply means one thing: a good table. Dinner is the evening's entertainment, all by itself. There's a reader with a scroll of poetry, a little music, and above all, conversation. Stretched out for 2 or 3 unhurried hours as the sky outside goes from gold to violet. No one is checking the time. There is, gloriously, no time to check. Our man, warm, fed, and 1 watered cup past comfortable, feels the day beginning to settle on him like a blanket. He performs his last duty of the evening, laughing convincingly at the patron's oldest joke, and takes his leave while there's still a smudge of light left in the sky. Because the walk home is the one part of a Roman day you did not want to do in the dark. Here is the fact that reshapes everything about the ancient evening. Rome had no street lighting. None. When the sun went down, a city of 1 million people went dark. Not movie dark, but true dark. Roofline to roofline, broken only by whatever small flames people carried or set in their windows. So dusk is a city-wide race. Shopkeepers bolt their wooden shutters. Stragglers hurry home in 2s and 3s. The rich, out late, travel behind hired torchbearers, a bubble of paid light moving through the black. Our man walks fast, keeps to the streets he knows, and does not stop to chat. Home. He does what every household in Rome is doing at this exact moment. He bars the door. Heavy wood, iron fittings, a beam dropped into brackets. Romans rode nervously and often about the night streets, and their doors show it. The ancient bedtime routine began with carpentry. Light now is a decision. Olive oil costs money, and a single clay lamp gives about as much light as a candle. So most Romans simply followed the sun out of the day. A little conversation in the lamplight, a last cup, a prayer to the household spirits at their small shrine, and then the flame gets one soft breath and the day is over. Here's the household math behind that small flame. A lamp is cheap, but oil is not, and a lamp burning all night drinks a real share of a working family's budget. So light after dark was spent the way money was, deliberately, briefly, and with a little guilt. Most rooms in Rome simply went dark with the sun every night for 1,000 years, which made the moon the most important lamp in the city. On a full moon night, Rome's streets were silver and almost generous. On a moonless one, the dark between doorways was total, a thing you could touch. Romans planned dinners, journeys, and bad decisions around the lunar calendar because the moon decided what the night would permit. From his window, the city is a constellation laid flat, scattered lamps and hearth glow, going out one by one, like the sky finishing its work in reverse. Somewhere below, a bolt slides. Somewhere far off, a baby is soothed. Rome is putting itself to bed, insula by insula, exactly as it has 10,000 nights before. And then, you already know what happens next because you were here when today began. Out at the city gates, the drivers have been waiting all afternoon for this exact moment. Sun is down. Caesar's law releases its grip, and the wheels return. Grain for the bakeries, stone for the emperor's newest project, wine, timber, fish sauce, marble. The whole bloodstream of the city flows at night, groaning over the same stones beneath the same 100,000 bedrooms. To live in Rome was to be rocked to sleep every night of your life by the sound of tomorrow being delivered. Not everyone rocked to sleep by the carts is actually asleep. Behind a warm window down the block, the baker's household is already at work because bread eaten at sunrise has to be kneaded in the dark. All over the city, thousands of arms are folding tomorrow's loaves in lamplit back rooms hours before the sun has any opinion about it. Down at the river, the night is even busier. Barges ride the Tiber to the docks, and porters unload them by torchlight. Grain, oil, wine, marble, hauling it into the towering warehouses that fed the city like a pantry the size of a district. Rome's stomach was stocked almost entirely in the dark. Inside, clerks with lamps count what the porters carry, chalking tallies that a hungry city will spend by noon. Muleteers doze against their animals between loads. It's an entire second economy, the night shift of a million-person machine, and almost no one in the daylight city will ever see it running. Past all of it, the Tiber slides on, carrying the moon on its back toward the sea. The bakers, the boatmen, the watchmen, the drivers, the night workers are the city's quiet caretakers, resetting Rome piece by piece so that morning can pretend the whole thing runs itself. The vigils are out again, buckets and ropes on their shoulders, walking their same slow circuits. Checking for the orange flicker in the wrong window, settling a dispute between two drivers arguing over the right-of-way, keeping the same drowsy watch their fathers kept. The night shift of Rome, delivering everyone else safely to morning. Upstairs, our man is asleep in his tunic, in the same posture we found him one whole turn of the sun ago. The coins from the Salutatio sit in a cup on the shelf. Tomorrow will be almost exactly this day again. The fountain, the doorstep, the forum, the long warm bath, the lamplit table. He would not call it monotonous. He would call it a life. And that's where we'll leave him and you. A million people breathing in the dark under one moon, held together by bread and water and habit and the rumble of wheels. Rome wasn't eternal because of its marble. It was eternal because of its mornings. Sleep well. The Moonlit Atlas will be here when you wake. If this helped you rest, the Atlas has more slow journeys waiting. They'll be right here tomorrow night. Good night.